So what are we going to do today? We are going to talk about what's happened in particularly South Africa, but to a certain extent around the world as well, where, and it's a trend, it's a phenomena, there's so many execs, managers, team leaders, employees, people that have lost, and the best word I can use is their chutzpah, their energy, their fire, their passion, their motivation, their determination, just to be the person that they actually can be. Now, I know some of you guys on here fits into that category, but some of you guys are also team leaders where you've got members in your team that fits into that category. So what I will attempt today is to give you an explanation that you can use in yourself, but also some tools that you can use on your team and inspire and just get that fire back in some of the people. Because if we get that fire and the passion back, life becomes a better journey. Our work function becomes more fun, exciting, more adventurous. We perform better, we're more efficient, we're more effective. And at the end of the day, our economy improves. So I'm actually doing this for selfish reasons today. I want you guys to help us improve the economy of this country so I can charge more for my training. It's a simple recipe, and I hope it's going to work and help everybody. So we're going to start off just by understanding what happened. And I'm saying what happened is, when did it start? What was the actual facts? What was the influences? And how did that secondly impact us as human beings, as individuals, as employers, as parents, as partners, as average people going through this amazing journey on this rock? So how did it impact us specifically? But then we need to find out how to fix it, because that's what this session is really about, is how to fix it. But to know how to fix it, we need to know exactly what needs to be fixed. And I'm saying fixed, it's not as if humans are broken. We've just caught a bit of a speed wobble and just a couple of things happened, but we just need to understand how to align. So knowing exactly where to focus is critical. If you've got a flat tire and you put it into a garage, they're not going to change your windscreen. It's not going to help the flat tire. If something is not working properly, we need to know exactly what it is, because that's where we can fix it. Then we can hone in, zoom in, and fix that particular area. So I'm going to unpack that a little bit. So literally what happened in the human brain, what happened in our psyche, what happened in our emotional state, in our thought patterns, our beliefs, our value system. So what exactly happened? And then we're going to go with, what are a couple of practical things I can apply on myself? And what are some of the things I can apply on my team to bring a reverse state? A state where people start functioning, where they're passionate again, where life becomes this magnificent adventure that we know it can be. So I hope you guys are on the journey. Your thinking caps are on. If you want to grab your pens and papers and take notes, you are most welcome. So let's look at what happened. So what happened is, we go back a couple of years ago, and I'm talking maybe about a year, 2 years before lockdown started. The first thing that started happening in our beautiful country, and in some countries around the world, but not as seriously as in South Africa, we had an economical shift. Things, who noticed a couple of years back, something started going amiss in our economy. We were not generating the kind of profits we wanted to. People weren't getting the salary increases. There's a lot of the large corporates, some of our biggest leading corporates, started doing restructuring, which basically meant a lot of people, started getting retrenched. And that started to create a sense of unease, an undercurrent of unease. I'm not really sure what's happening, but we still had hope, we still had faith, we still had high expectations, and we kind of coped with that. It wasn't a major setback. Then the world was surprised, and South Africa as well, when lockdown came in and the rules changed. Everything started shifting. During lockdown, we know that obviously jobs, became under pressure. A lot of two-income families became one-income families. In a lot of cases, people had to start recreating what they were doing. In my case, particularly, I used to only train face-to-face in beautiful buildings with people in front of me. Lockdown came in and I had to set up a computer and a camera and start just reinventing myself. But this had quite a large impact on us as humans, our psyche, and I'll explain how in a moment. During lockdown, we went through a time frame where we were never sure how long this is going to last. This created another level of uncertainty. When are we going to get out? Will things get back to normal? And a lot of people started going through isolation, where we're not having that personal contact with the volume of people we used to have. And that affected a couple of the chemicals in the brain. I'll talk about that in detail a little bit later. And things started shifting majorly. Our economy started taking a knock because of it. And then we had load shedding kick in. We got to the end of lockdown, and then the lights went out. And that just brought in a new, let's call it, flavor to what we had to experience. And again, it had an impact on the economy. And to a certain extent, that's where we are right now. So that's what happened. The question is, what is the impact it had on us? So I just want to give you a bit of an understanding about how the brain functions, because we have different parts of the brain. The parts of the brain I normally talk about is what we call the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And, generally most people focus on the conscious mind. They believe that's the biggest part or the strongest part of the brain. It's actually not. Your subconscious mind actually makes about 95% of your decisions, and it's a much stronger driver in how you experience this life. And there's a lot of influences from the subconscious mind that directs our state, our reactions, our beliefs, our values, our behaviors, our interpretation of what's happening around us. And that's where the shift happened. Now, let me just give you a little bit of a technical understanding. So inside our brain, we've got a whole lot of electrical connections, if you wish to call it that. The technical word is neurons, neuron connections. And these neuron connections are always in a state of change. A lot of people think that once your brain is created, your brain stays the same your whole life. It doesn't really. When you get born, you have certain functions required, or before you get born, you have certain functions required to survive in your mother's womb. So your brain creates certain neuron paths that keeps you alive in the womb. When you get born, in about the first 2 months of life, about 80% of all the neurons, in other words, the electrical connections, the wiring of your brain, about 80% of that dies, gets removed. It creates a void for what? A void for new neurons that teaches us how to communicate, how to eat, how to walk, how to interact as people in this world. So the basic principle is, from the moment we get born, our brain adjusts how it works according to the situation, according to the environment, according to external influences. At a very young age, we need to talk, we need to learn language, so the brain creates specific neuron paths that's language learning orientated. That's why a 5, 6, 7-year-old picks up a language very quickly and very easily. Some of you guys at a later age decided to learn an extra language. I remember when I was about 35, I decided to learn Portuguese, and I didn't really get much further than uno, dos, tres. My brain really struggled to adapt to learn new language. And the reason is quite simple. Why did I get languages so fast at the age of 5, and at 35 I can't? Because my brain didn't use, here's a key, didn't use those neuron paths. So the brain pruned it. Now, expectation, hope, passion, the inspiration, the consistent personal motivation to achieve, to do, to create, to work hard, to think differently, to be magnificent at what we do, that is a particular group of neuron paths that creates that ability. So when lockdown came in, when our economy shifted, when we started losing salaries, when we started losing hope, when our expectations of what our short-term and medium-term future holds was shattered, our thought patterns, our beliefs, and our shape of how we create reality in our own brain started to alter. This started to alter the average person's neuron pathways. Now, how does that happen, Dion? Is that possible? Yes, it is. Because in the brain, on our neurons, there's an orchestrator. There's a part in the brain, it's called the reticular activating system, that is the orchestrator, the decision maker, that directs which neuron pathways are going to be deleted and which new ones are going to be developed. Another word for the reticular activating system is it's the function or a gland in the brain that's responsible for the brain's arousal. And I'm talking about the brain's arousal. Now, what is the brain's arousal? The brain's arousal is when there's a concept in the brain, it's aroused to this concept. Now, think what happened during the last 3, 4, 5 years when everything started shifting. There's an arousal of what? An arousal of things are going wrong. My expectations are shattered. I don't know what's happening. I'm in a state of fear. I'm in a state of discomfort. I don't know who I am. I'm not sure where I fit in anymore. I'm not convinced my skills from yesterday will serve me tomorrow. All of these thought patterns start to arouse the RAS. And what the RAS then does, it kicks. And its function is quite simple. Its function is to find more proof and confirmation of. So imagine your RAS as a satellite dish that's mounted on your head. And what it does, it scans for more information of the same. Now, a very simple example where I can just make this very real to you guys is if you think back to the last time you bought a motor vehicle. Just go back in your memory last time you bought a motor vehicle. Do you remember a week or two after you bought that motor vehicle, suddenly a lot of other similar cars started appearing on the road? You just started seeing so many more of them. How did that happen? Well, that was your RAS doing its job, because that purchase decision aroused your brain, gave it focus, and the RAS said, thank you very much, I'll do my job. I will find more proof and confirmation of. So what happened during the last couple of years? Slowly but surely, because of all the negative things that shattered our expectations, our hopes, our dreams, our RAS got aroused to the negative. And it started finding more proof and confirmation of. Now, the minute that happens, it starts creating a void on the other side of it. There's a flip side to the negative, and the flip side is the positive. And the brain started to hide a lot of positive signals, and it started highlighting the negative ones. So generally what starts to happen, our internal dialogue, our thought patterns becomes aligned to what information we're gathering more of. Now, remember what I said, when you bought a car, you started seeing more other cars, similar cars on the road. If your brain is highlighted to a certain fact, it brings more of that information into the brain. It's as if we just notice more of it. If we go into a negative state, if we go into a doubt state, if we go into a fear state, we find more proof on why we should be there, which is like a snowball response. We start getting more and more. We gather more proof, if you will. And the more the brain is filled with the negative, the less space is left for the positive. And that's literally then how the neurons start to rewire. There's a wonderful saying that says neurons that fire together, wire together. So now you've got this part of the brain that's going despondent, that's going negative, that's going into depression, that's going into anxiety, that's going into fear, that's getting confused, that's not sure what's happening, and it's starting to focus more on that. And the functionality of the brain says, well, this has to be the norm, and it wires accordingly. This clearly is what this human is requiring at the moment. Let me create more neurons accordingly, and let me create less of what this human is not requesting. So over a time frame of a year, 2, 3 years, that state becomes our default state. it's almost another word I can use for it. It's an undercurrent blueprint of who we become. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. So if I talk about what happened, I think I've explained what happened over the last couple of years. And then specifically, how did it impact us was the second point I wanted to make. And by now you should have a bit of a picture. It's something that happened physically, literally inside of our brain. And it is a bit of a phenomenon because this usually only happens when there's massive world events. Things like war creates a similar state for a lot of people. And it's impacted a huge amount of people that used to be extremely effective. Another example, just to sort of give you guys a bit of a different perspective on this. If you take someone that sees perfectly and they fit, they're healthy, their vision is 20/20, they've got no problem in going outside, experiencing life. If you take that person, you lock them in a dark room for 10 years, and all of a sudden you bring them into their light, their brains and their eyes will not be able to cope with the light. They will immediately start going back and look for darker shades, for darkness, because that becomes the norm. Another word for it is that becomes our comfort zone. Now, I know it's a weird word to use because a lot of people say, but how can fear, being despondent, being lethargic, not being motivated, not being excited, not being passionate, be a comfort zone? In the brain, it can create it as the normal zone and the zone to which I go often. That's the comfort zone. And over this time frame, that is literally what happened in our brains. And I trust up to now that makes a little bit of sense. Some of you guys are going, yeah, that's possible. All right. So what do we need to fix? Well, the answer there is really quite simple. We need to fix the way our neurons function. We need to prune the negative ones and we need to regrow the positive ones. Now, a lot of people will say, well, why don't we just snap out of it? It's not that simplistic. That's unfortunately the reality. You can snap out of it temporarily. You can snap out of it for short seasons or short time frames, but your default state will override. So what we need to do is we literally need to retrain the brain. If you take someone that's gone into the dark for 10 years and they come out, you need to retrain the eyes. You need to retrain the mechanism on how the brain converts imaging into the deeper brain. So will that take time? Yes, it will take time. Is there a possibility that it can be done? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So to put that into context, I want to tell you guys a quick story. I watched, occasionally, I'm a couch potato and I put on YouTube and I watch funny videos. Anybody else there? It's going to be like, I've got a couple of hours to kill. Let me just watch some silly stuff on YouTube. And there's a video going around, well, there's a couple now that a lot of people made on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook. You see it all over social media. And it's called the blanket drop. And it started out with people, you know, putting up a blanket and there's a dog in front of them. They say, hello, hello. And the dog is wiggly, 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 all happy. They lift up the blanket and then they drop the blanket. But as they drop the blanket, they just hide around the corner. And then all of a sudden, you've got this confusion on the dog's face. Where's my owner gone? Where's my owner gone? And what started happening now is a lot of people started doing it with toddlers, small children. And I watched one specifically about 2 weeks ago with a toddler. And it was fascinating because you could see the happiness and the joy. We're playing, we're playing, we're playing. So I want to use this story just to use it as a metaphor to explain what I've just spoken about. So this little toddler is playing with its parent. Its parent is the part of its life that feeds it, gives it security, fulfills its expectations. The parent is its safe place. It's its place of joy, passion, love, and everything else. And it's playing with the parent. So it's in a happy state. It's in a passionate state. It's in an adventurous state. It's in a very creative state. It's in the state we want to be in when we function generally in life. When we are at the workplace, when we need to think out of the box and be creative, be passionate, be effective, be energized, be zestful, full of fire. So here's this kid playing perfect state, and the blanket drops and the parent hides around the corner. Here's the first key. The first thing that happens is all of a sudden, the expectation, that in which we trust, that in which which creates our joy, our passion, is gone. And the first thing you see on this toddler's face is confusion. And that's to a large extent what happened to us. We went into a state of confusion. We started asking questions. Why? Why is this happening? What's going to do? What? We ask millions of different questions. We don't really get a lot of the answers. So this child then goes, where's my parent go? A little bit of confusion. Then the second thing that happens quite strangely is that child actually goes into a little bit of a trance state. It's a complete confusion state where the brain just for a couple of seconds almost shuts down. Literally. That happens to us as grown-ups as well. Then fear kicks in, the sense of rejection kicks in, the uncertainty, and very often on these video clips, you'll see these kids will start crying because what they trusted in is now gone. And when I watched that video clip, I got goosebumps when I saw the one reaction of the kid. And this is the thing that I want to talk to you guys about. You see, the one thing about us humans is even though that what we hope in, that what we trust, our expectation, our passion, even though it disappears, we respond in the same way that toddler did. We stand up, because that's what the toddler did. And it started searching. It started moving forward. Even though in the midst of that negative state, it rose up. In the midst of that confusion, it stood up and it started searching. Now, here's the key, the first key on how to fix it. See, when that toddler stood up and started searching, it was not motivated, nor was it inspired. See, we are constantly looking for motivation and inspiration. The toddler was not motivated nor inspired. What the toddler did was it applied courage. It looked at the scenario, did not experience it as failure. It looked at the scenario, experienced it as information gathering. It said, all right, parent was here, parent now gone. I sound like Yoda. Parent was here, parent now gone. Search. Apply courage. Get up, move, look. That takes courage. It's not based on the negative that just happened. You see, children are brilliant at that because at that age, nobody has taught the child that the concept of failure exists. Because if they believe that, they would not stand up and look. They do that when they try and learn to walk. They fall how many times? They don't understand the concept of failure. They stand up and they just keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. When they try and talk, a lot of people think the first word your child said was mommy or dada. No, it wasn't. The first word the child said was oh. You didn't understand it, so the child kept trying, kept trying. It wasn't a matter of failure. It was, this is information I'm gathering. I'm not failing. I'm learning. And it started adapting and adjusting what it was doing. Until when? Until it found success. So what does this toddler do when it stands up and starts? It looks until it finds the parent. And then what happens? Jubilation, happiness, joy, ecstasy. Guess what? Now it's motivated. Now it's inspired. See, motivation and inspiration is not a prerequisite for action. Motivation and inspiration is not a prerequisite for change. The prerequisite for change is having a desire and applying courage. Once you start having a desire to change, you can apply courage to change. When you apply courage to change, you need to bring in a bit of tenacity and discipline to keep the momentum going. The child will start looking until it finds. You need to apply the effort and the conviction to be able to do it. That's the secret. We need to learn from children, don't we? So, yes, but you know what? In the real life, In the real life, sometimes the parents never come back. Yes, you're right. In the real life, sometimes the parent doesn't come back. Okay, well, let's learn from the child. What does it then do? Well, quite easily. It finds a replacement, or it creates a replacement. It finds something else to focus its expectation on. It's got a magnificent way to do that. It cries and it opens its arms, or it smiles and it gives you a gugagala. It communicates. It searches until it finds a replacement. And if it doesn't find a replacement, it will create its own replacement. So what does that mean? If you grow up in an orphanage, you don't have a parent, you will find another person in your life to fill that void. You will find a partner, you will find a friend, you will find a group of people. That's the tenacity of the human spirit. We have the ability in the midst of our worst situations to stand up and apply courage. We've done it throughout history constantly. We are capable of it. That's the reason I love humanity, because it doesn't matter how bad it is or how bad it goes. Something in us drives us to rise up, to stand up. The fact that you are here on this platform is proof of that. Because you're looking around the corner. You are looking for what you've missed. You are already in a state where you've made a decision, something else must be out there. You are already in the process of either recreating or finding an alternative. That's the reason you are here. So, well done on that. The question is there a way to accelerate it and make it more accurate? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. So I'm going to give you guys, if you want, a couple of real practical tips on how you can teach the brain to create an alternative or to find something else. How to get the brain to start regrowing those achiever, positive, passionate neuron networks in your brain. So I'm going to go through a couple of different variations of this. You can do all of them or just some of them, and you will have positive results. The first thing we need to start doing is we need to start increasing our dopamine. Dopamine is just a chemical that the brain produces, and we need to start increasing it naturally. And the best way to do that is to start really creating very small goals, very achievable goals, but literally 1 or 2 every single day. Simplistic things like getting up and making your bed, getting dressed, cleaning yourself up, preparing a breakfast, getting in your car and actually going to work. Very simplistic goals. But here's the key, and this is the critical key. The goals in themselves are not good enough. There needs to be a second level attached to it, which is recognition. There needs to be a tangible measure, and then there needs to be something in the brain going, I did this. Self-recognition of achievement. In the beginning, these can be very small, and they can be on top of each other. At some stage, the brain will go, I got this, and that becomes the new undercurrent blueprint. The minute that happens, increase the size, increase the challenge, increase the time frame of the goal. But we never go over a 2-week window frame. Keep it within a 2-week maximum window frame, because that's the frame of the brain in which it experiences reality or exists present time frame. The brain does live in the past, present, and in the future, but it's present. Very often that reality is a 2-week either side, to the future and to the past window frame. So you set up small achievable steps of goals with recognition, critical component. It is not the achievement of the goal that rewires the brain. It is the recognition of the achievement that rewires the brain. So the recognition has to be critical. In the workplace, you can do that by having a board with smiley faces, pictures, ringing a bell, whatever, blowing a whistle. In your personal life, you can self-celebrate, take a bite of a nice dark chocolate, go for a swim, do a happy dance, whatever the case may be. Act it out if you have to. So this is the first way that we are going to, it's taking the brain to the positive gym, teaching the brain how to start recreating achievement neurons. That's the first way. Inside of that process, that time frame, when you start doing that, please get off your cell phone games and try and eliminate all modes of instant gratification. Because cell phone games, things like instant gratification, recreates a false form of dopamine, which actually counterworks the real dopamine. So if you can get your people just to eliminate that, amazing, thumbs up. Just for a time, tell them it's a sabbatical, it's going on a fasting, it's just recreating and rewiring the brain. But it does work in practice. All right, the next thing you need to do, and this is something that we had a massive lack of during lockdown, is you need to increase oxytocin in the brain. And oxytocin is called the love drug. It's literally through touch. Shake hands, hug, allow people to bump shoulders. Physical human interaction is the secret here. This needs to be increased, and this needs to happen on a fairly regular basis. The practical ways of doing that is in the work environment, get everybody to take lunch at the same time, ideally get them to sit at the same table, get the boardroom and make it your lunchroom. Put all the food on there, let everybody sit together, share meals together. That interaction of the human spirit, because we are humans and we do love personal interaction. It's part of who we are. It's part of our nature. This will start improving some of the positive chemicals in the brain, and again, start retraining the brain how to start creating those neuron pathways. The next thing that we really need to do is we need to get out in the sun. We need UV lights. Now, in some cases, and this happened during lockdown, a lot of people went and became recluse. They started going indoors. They started spending more time. We didn't spend as much time outdoors. We were exposed less to sunlight. If you look generally, I mean, what a lot of pale faces did we see during the midst of lockdown. We didn't even have masked tans because we just stayed out of the sun. We just went inside and we hid. And what this did is it didn't allow us to be exposed to as much UV light. And the UV is critical for serotonin production in the body. If we don't have enough of that, it's going to create a bit of a lack. So that was the main thing that happened. The next thing you can do there is you can use your past very often to start creating a bit of serotonin as well. And that's literally by going and saying, well, what have I done in the past that's been great? What decisions have I made? What qualifications have I earned? Go back to thinking about the time you got your degree, your diplomas, your certifications, times when you make great decisions. You can use your past to fool your brain into feeling like you are an achiever at the moment. And the reason for that is, on the deeper subconscious, we don't really differentiate between what's real and what's not real. The deeper subconscious just experiences. Some proof of that is when you watch a movie. Come on, ladies, when you watch a chick flick or some of the guys. I know in my house, my wife, my 3 daughters, when The Notebook came out, oh my goodness gracious, I think they watched it like 17 times, the same movie, and they cried at the same spot. We watch movies and we experience it as real simply because the brain doesn't make that differentiation. So you can use memory, great memories of great achievements, bring them into your present, experience them again, feel that great feeling. And what that does, it fools the brain into that achievement, but it starts producing some of those happy and good, really good chemicals. Next thing you can do is start doing a little bit of exercise. Just get out there and start moving. Exercise, brilliant to rewire the brain because it creates a lot of serotonins and very nice and endorphins. That's very good for the brain. But here's a couple of nice ones you guys can do. Start, buy vanilla essence and sprinkle it in the area where you are active. Take that smell has a phenomenal impact on the brain. Take things like lavender. If you can get some fresh lavender, put it on your pillow, smell it the whole night. It actually has a massive impact on the brain, and it teaches the brain to start rewiring its neurons into a more positive sense. Spicy foods, oh yeah, very good for endorphins. Eat a little bit more spicy food, gives you a bit of a kick. One of the tips I give a lot of people is first thing in the morning, a little bit of just normal tap water or a room temperature water, not tap water if you're in some areas of South Africa, a little bit of water, cayenne pepper, and a bit of lemon juice, just to give your system that little bit of a kick. It really pushes up your metabolism, raises your energy levels, good for the blood sugar and blood pressure and all the other things, medical terms. Really healthy thing to do, but it also puts you into a very positive state. It preloads you into a good state for the rest of the day. and that allows your neurons to start rewiring as well. All right, so I'm hoping you guys are getting some practical things you can apply. So one of the other things you really need to do is you need to retrain the brain through repetition how to think differently. Now, when we think, and I want to just hang on this one for a little while. When we think, we actually, and it sounds very weird, we have multiple voices inside the head that say a variety of different things. So when you think about something, it's literally thinking about it from this angle, and you've got another voice saying something else, you've got a critical voice, you've got optimism voice, you've got all these different voices going on in your head. And we think, how can I put this? We think quite intensely, but thoughts are fleeting. That's the second part of it. Thoughts come and they go as fast as what they came in. So you want to teach your brain to think about challenges, goals, passions, expectations, visions, dreams, positive things that you want to use as a drawing mechanism, like a magnet putting you towards positive. So how do you teach your brain to do that? Well, there's a couple of steps. Number one, you need to start saying the positive things. Because when we say things, there's a different functionality that happens in our thoughts. For me to be able to say something, my brain needs to reconstruct the thoughts in a logical sequence. So for me to say something positive, I need to reconstruct my brain in a positive sequence. Now, don't lie to yourself. So don't go, if you're standing, and the example I usually use, if you're standing in the field of thorns, don't go and lie to yourself and say, I'm standing in a flower bed. Your brain is not stupid. It knows it's lying. All right? Please don't go down that route. Sometimes people don't understand the concept of positive and flowers, flowers, flowers. You're going to open your eyes, you're still going to be in thorns, and the disappointment's going to be more than what the inspiration was. So speak positive words. I'm standing in a field of thorns, but I have got a fork. I can turn the soil. I've got the energy to plant things. I can water it. I can feed it, and I can grow a beautiful bed of flowers. Those are positive words. To be able to say them, you need to think in that direction. So what you do when you speak things that are future-based, that are based in the fundamental of hope, that's based in the fundamental of passion, in achievement, then that starts, those thoughts now become more solid in your brain. You have to construct them differently. So what that's doing, it's forcing your brain to think in a certain way. It's teaching your neurons to function differently. The second thing you want to do is you need to take these thoughts and write them down. Because the language we say, we speak, is different to the language we write. When we want to write something down, the brain requires a huge amount more of energy to construct that concept. Just to think something is easy. To say it is a little bit easier and better. But to write it down forces the brain to really think about it, to construct it in a strategic mechanism. And that's where we want the brain to go. So start writing down your goals, the step, your aspirations, your dreams. Put them into a well-constructed strategy. Read what you've written. Read it out loud so your mouth can say it again, so your ear can hear it, so that your heart can believe it, and it can start shifting the way your brain functions. Now, I trust you guys got that. And you guys are going to, some of you guys are going to do that. Now, one of the things we need to understand about the brain, and this is the good news, our human brains cannot comprehend problems without it understanding the opposite of the problem, which is the solution. In our brain, for us to comprehend something, whatever we want to comprehend needs to exist in duality. Our brains cannot comprehend up without understanding down. Forwards, backwards, left, right, in, out, light, dark. It needs the duality, in other words, both sides of the coin, to understand the coin. I hope that makes sense. So problems work the same way. And the example I usually use, if you get in my car, my windscreen is cracked, the only way you know the windscreen is cracked is because you can actually understand what the windscreen looks like without a crack. Your brain can only comprehend that there's something wrong if it understands the opposite. Now, that's the good news. And the reason it's good news is even though you are despondent, even though your energy is down, even though you know that life is, just giving you a massive curveball, some of your expectations, your hopes, and dreams have been shattered, that's the problem statement. Deep inside of your subconscious, the brain can only understand that concept if it understands the flip side. So if you start going through some of these exercises that I just gave you, what will happen is the opposite of what the brain knows, which is opportunity, which is passion, which is courage, which is conviction of spirit, which is tenacity and discipline and action and proper behaviors, will be accelerated because the brain knows it. So when your neurons start experiencing it, it goes, oh yeah, let's go. I've got this. I've done this. I know this. So it accelerates the growth process, if you will. Yep. Does it make sense, guys? I hope so. So what's the last secret I want to give you guys here? I want to give you one lucky secret. Do everything as if it's an adventure. Not as if it's a task that must be completed. So what is doing it as an adventure? Adventure is choice. Adventure creates opportunity. Adventure creates options. Adventure creates excitement. Adventure creates passion. Adventure creates great rewards. Adventure is fun. So whatever goals and things you want to do, create it as if it's an adventure. So in other words, bring in fun elements. So when if your simple task is to make your bed, go find a funny hat, put on a sombrero, make it an adventure. In the work environment, you've got to go to a meeting, walk from your desk to the boardroom backwards. Make it an adventure. Bring in variety and spice. Adventure is variety and spice. The reason that works is variety and spice is an intrinsic need of us human beings. And when we experience more of it, we get excited and we look for more of it. We hunt for more of it. So if we make everything we do an adventure, it becomes more fun. I sit on these platforms quite a lot and I train on these. I sometimes make an adventure. I'll wear a fancy shirt and I'll wear my sleeping pants underneath, because nobody can see it. For me, that's an adventure. I'm sitting here, I giggle sometimes because nobody can see what I'm wearing underneath. Right now, I'm sitting here, I've got this fancy shirt on, but I've got an all very comfortable pair of jeans and I'm barefoot. Why? Because it's hot in Joburg. And I'm barefoot. That to me is adventure. I'm barefoot like a child. Make it fun, make it adventurous. If you do all of these things and you string them together, it's very quick. So how long does it take for the brain to rewire itself? It depends on how much damage was done. For some people, it's a week. For some people, it's 2 months. For some people, it's 6 months. The longest time frame you're probably looking at it is about 18 months. But that's in extreme cases. We haven't been exposed to the negative that long. It's usually people that's been exposed to extreme trauma for 10, 15, 20 years of their lives that needs about an 18-month window frame to rewire the brain. The brain can actually rewire itself very, very fast. Is it possible? Yes. And the main reason is, guys, we are alive. Now, the character trait of something alive is it means it's capable of change. So the good news is just because you are down and feeling really bad and procrastinating and finding alternative things and living in fear and anxiety and stress and depression, that's not necessarily your destiny. Make a conscious decision. Say, I'm not happy with this. And you've probably already made that decision. I'm going to change and just start applying some of these different things. And you'll be amazed how soon challenges become exciting again. Doing things extremely well becomes exciting again. Pushing that extra limit, putting in that extra 10% and going to 110% starts becoming exciting again. You are human and we have got the character trait. We can always rise, stand up, and change. And that's the magnificence of being a human. And that's the magnificence of possibility of change.